Shalom, this is Avraham Shira from Eretz Israel. The sun is falling and Shabbat is coming, and we have arrived at our weekly portion of the Zohar, Parshat Kedoshim. And this Parsha opens up with a statement that the Zohar builds a whole lecture on. But we're going to focus on one part of it, the very beginning, where God says to Moses, Kedoshim to you, Ki Kadosh Ani. You will be holy because I'm holy. That sounds like a nice thing if you want to be holy. But what if a person doesn't want to be so holy? What if a person decides, you know what, I accept you, God, it's fine, but I have my own life. I have my own rules and my own practices, and I don't really want to be holy. There's a lot of people like that. I've talked to people that are not interested in religion and people that are not interested in God. And they only quote the negative things about religion and the idea of an eternal creator. But God says here, you're going to be holy. And it sounds to me behind the words, whether you like it or not, you're going to be holy. Now, how can he say that? That obliterates free choice. You will be holy because I'm holy. And God is not being terribly humble about this. He says, I'm holy, and therefore you will be holy. So what does it mean? Because we know one of the rules, the metaphysical rules of creation, is that God cannot remove free choice without just cause. And we have the example of Pharaoh in Egypt, who, against his will, continued to fight God, and his own heart was made hard by God because Pharaoh himself, did not want to have this relationship with God. He didn't want to answer to this being. And until he destroyed his own country and his family as well. But we're assuming that most of us don't want to be Pharaoh, and we don't want to act like Pharaoh. We're assuming, okay, I might not want to be holy, but I could be a decent person. But God says, no, you will be holy. And I think the first answer to this problem is that you are made from a spark of God. That you are holy already. That you were created from holiness, from a spark that knew no impurity, that is from a fire of desire that was pure from the beginning. And you will be holy because that's who you really are. And all the garments that we collect in this world. And in Zohar, garments mean thoughts, ideas, belief systems, attitudes, positions I take, promises I make, desires I develop. Those are all called garments of the soul. But the spark that's animating all of them is the one that was given to us at inception from the beginning of creation. See, all of us were really born with Adam 5,782 years ago. Sometimes people ask how old you are. I say, well, on a good day, 5,782. But if we really go back to that source of who we are, that pure spark, that fire that has no way of becoming impure by this world, then we can begin with who we really are. And look at the garments that I've picked up in this lifetime and maybe in other lifetimes. And these garments of thoughts and attitudes and feelings and positions, and they're exchangeable, they're changeable. We are not fixed beings. And you see it in the next verse of the Torah. God says, you're going to be holy because I'm holy. And then in Rabbi Eliezer says, don't be like a horse or a donkey. Right? He's taking that from Tehillim. Al tiyu kasusu kafered. Don't be like a horse or a donkey. Why does he bring that here? We're just talking about being holy like God, and then he brings you the exact extreme opposite. Don't be like a donkey or a mule is actually a fered. Don't be a mule. It's a good advice, but why? Where do we go from one extreme to another? Except, I think one idea we can extract from that is that if I decide not to go after the holy me, the true spark, then I can run into a lot of trouble with the positions I take in life, the stubbornness that comes from not being flexible. And flexibility is the sign of maturity. It's not how much you know, it's how flexible you are with your knowledge. And it doesn't mean you abrogate your belief system, but rather it means you can embrace other people and other systems and understand that people are different and still hold them within the totality of the oneness of our Creator. Okay, so but don't be like a Seuss that runs free and happy all the time, wonderful, but doesn't really want to go home and doesn't really want to listen and doesn't really want to follow instructions. Or a donkey who's worse, he refuses. We've dealt with a few donkeys here where I live, and try to move a donkey. I'd rather try to move a Volkswagen, because they're rugged and they're firm in their position and their stance. But we can't be that way. But if we're not flexible and we don't choose that path of spiritual flexibility, which in a broad sense is this idea of choosing the holy, because Ein ben Horin Ela ben Torah, there's no true freedom. There's no freedom except with the laws of the Torah, which are the laws of the life, which teaches us how we operate in a system. And the system is called the tree of life. Okay? And so when I can operate within the system, then I find my freedom to operate. But if I choose not the path of holiness, guess what? I get to be like a donkey or a horse, and I can run around and I can do what I want, but I'm not going to have a lot of friends. And I might end up at the end of the day, like the rest of this Zohar is going to tell us, some very, they're difficult things to hear, maybe on Facebook, but we can handle it. I think he tells us that many times the Torah itself gives witness to the human race. How many times has the Torah raised its voice and cried out about the injustices that are done that go against the Torah? And these injustices, they bring judgment on people. And it goes on to tell us that the people themselves are demichim b'shenata b'chorehon b'ho, which is a very interesting piece of Zohar. It says that the people themselves are sleeping in their holes. And another version, another nusach of this word in their holes, it could be they used to bury people, of course, in carved out kuchim, they're called in Hebrew. The little boxes in the stone. But they transfer the word from their holes to their sins. That a person can be buried in their sins, which is a very interesting idea, because it implies you're still alive, but you're not really alive. Because there's this idea of being alive when you're attached to God, because you're alive to the infinite life, and not the limited life that we find ourselves here. And they don't look, and they don't, this is a very interesting phrase, listen, they don't pay attention to the face that they will bring. The face they will bring on the day of judgment. What does that mean? Well, let's say you got an invitation in the mail to visit the king or the queen in the palace. You would prepare yourself in a lot of different ways. And one would be like how you want to present your face. What face do you want to show to the king? That you're happy being a servant, that you're happy being in the government or being in the nation of the king, or that you're happy with the king's management of the kingdom, all kinds of faces you could bring. But if I can't even raise my eyes to the king because I never really thought about him and I never really cared about the way he wanted to run the kingdom, I would be ashamed to walk in before the throne of glory, and I can't even raise my eyes. And there are tzaddikim, there are righteous people today that you see them walk down the street, they don't raise their eyes. They look funny, but actually maybe they're just in awe of God so much so that they can't raise their eyes. And so we don't want to go to the final day, the final judgment, whatever calendar event that will be in the future, right? Because we want to be the opposite. We don't want to be like the stiff-necked donkey or mule, or the horse that's too free. Rather, we want to be human beings. We want to receive the system and then work within the system. And the system, of course, are these laws of the Torah. And it really is, once you get in, on the outside, it looks very strict. But once you get inside the Torah, you see it is really the only way to live a happy, just, straight, honest, pure life. Okay. Now he goes on to tell us another interesting thing. This phrase, Mahu de chaser lev de let lehem emunuta, that a person who has a heart that's lacking has no faith. Now that's pretty hard too, because a lot of people have there's many layers of faith. Rabbi Nachman teaches there are endless layers of faith. That you can have faith in God, that He created the world and He took a vacation. You can have faith in God that He created the Jewish people, that He gave us the Torah, that He gave us the land. The layers of faith go as far as you want them to go. But he says a person who doesn't have a heart has no faith. And recently I was in a conversation with some young people, and I was one of them. I was one of the young people, right? And this guy said to me, well, what is heart? What do you mean by heart? You use this word heart, you have heart, and I'm like, well, feeling. Isn't it clear? He said, what do you mean by feeling? And I try to give him an example. Well, isn't there something that you love? Can you imagine right now losing something that you love? That's going to hurt. That's heart. Now, if you imagine losing something that you love and it doesn't hurt you, then I would question the love. Or I would question what's the wall around my heart that doesn't let me feel the love that I know is deep inside there. So love is there, but sometimes it's behind very thick walls. But that unfortunately, he tells us that people that do learn Torah but don't believe in it, they read the book, but they don't really take the book more than a mythological rendition of something in the past or a literary event that took place sometime in the distant past. Those people, they cause damage to themselves by their learning. They actually will find reasons to support why not to keep the Torah, and find reasons why not to develop this intimate relationship, this flexible, infinite being that can work with us wherever we are, at any level that we're at. So we have to be careful, when we go to sit down to open these holy books, whether you open them in English or in French or Spanish or the original in Hebrew, or however you learn, if you at least be open to faith. Because if I open a book and I'm already against it, I'm going to create a negative backlash in my soul and in my being. And I've seen people like this, and I find them impossible, actually, because they're usually very educated and interesting to talk to. But when they start talking about the lack of faith and they start putting down God, why are you reading a book about God when you're putting Him down? And I know people like that. It's such a contradiction that it's hard to embrace. But okay, that's my problem. But anyways, I think that you understand here that you're going to be holy because God's holy, because you're made from His holiness. And it might not be till after you leave your body, after 120 years. You'll be holy then. You're going to go up and be purified, and you're going to be face the King and the throne, and hopefully with a smile and a joy and a gratitude for the chance that we got to be here in this world, and the chance that we have to fix and to repair and to restore and to build something beautiful in honor of the one who created us. So God bless you all, and accept the spark inside, and you'll deal with the garments afterwards. There's many different ways that we get cleansed, and that we purify the garments, and that where the soul, the inner holy spark, becomes united with all the rest of who we are, and we become one being. And when we become one with ourselves, guess what? We get much closer to Hashem. God bless you all. Have a great Shabbat. We'll see you next week on all the platforms, and look for us on our daily class of Rabbi Nachman on Patreon. And we have some new things coming out always, so all the best.